Good morning, boys. Today I actually want to do a bit of Oryx and Crake. I want to do chapter 5. So the plan with that is that the usual, you're going to listen, you're going to take notes. I'm going to do a bit of reading from the actual novel though. Just certain extracts that I thought were important. I was really actually hoping that we could do this during class, but with the test and other stuff that we needed to do, we couldn't do that. And I don't want to save it for after midterm because we need to get done with the book. We need to cover as many chapters as possible. So by the end of this video, you should have some of the important points that you need to know for the 3 chapters of chapter, like the 3 sub-chapters for chapter 5, and they are toast, fish, and bottle. Okay, so I want to read. Okay, so I'm going to read, but I'm also going to give you stuff that you need to note about chapter 5. So if we start with the chapter toast, so in this chapter, it was actually quite interesting. So the crackers were created, and the whole point of creating the crackers, as we've already discussed, was to do away with certain things that human beings, normal human beings, do. And in the crackers, they weren't supposed to have those things. So I think it's in this chapter where Snowman, every time he sees the crackers, he realizes how perfect they look. Like, they look absolutely perfect. They are flawless. They don't have any cellulite. They don't have stretch marks. They're absolutely perfect. But their perfection is what he doesn't like about them. And he actually misses imperfections. He misses pimples and warts and like a lopsided smile. Like, he misses those kinds of things about human beings, and the crackers don't have that. So you need to remember that the crackers were created in the hopes of creating a species that didn't have human flaws, that didn't have human weaknesses. And one of the other things that Craig was trying to get rid of when he was making the crackers is this human desire for a higher power. So if you look at human beings, they always want to believe in something bigger and something more powerful than them. So whether we are Christians or we are Muslims or we are any religion, or if we're even atheist actually, we have this deep desire to believe in something that is stronger and bigger and more in control than we are. And in this chapter, we actually see that the crackers, despite the fact that they are made by human beings and they have been manipulated, their design has been manipulated, they still desire that higher power. And so every time Snowman comes to visit them, they want to hear a new story about Craig. And Craig has become the sort of a god, and Snowman has become a sort of prophet for them. And so, of course, Snowman has made up these stories so that they can believe in something. But the problem with lying is that you always have to remember your lie so that you have to remember the lies so that it can stay consistent. So he's had to remember the lies that he makes up about them, right? So in this chapter, Toast, we see that the crackers, they yearn for stories that give them a sense of place in the world, right? We've been doing the museum project during this term, and a lot of it, you guys were talking about where you come from, what's important to you. A lot of you spoke about your heritage, your Greek backgrounds or your Portuguese backgrounds or whatever backgrounds that you identify with that you think that are important to you. We all want to know that we belong somewhere. We all have something in our lives where we go, okay, this is where I fit in. These are my people. These are the people that I belong with. And so the crackers want that as well. So the reason why they beg for stories from Snowman is because they want to hear stories so that they know where they come from, they know where they belong, and they know what their culture is and they know what they're about. And so that's the biggest reason why they beg for stories about Craig. Sorry. So Snowman becomes, I've already said this, Snowman becomes a kind of prophet to them. And so he's kind of like the mediator between the crackers and Craig himself. I think there was, I don't know if it's in this chapter or in the later chapters, but Snowman's looking up at the stars, and they wanna know what he's doing, and he says he's talking to Craig. And earlier in the chapters before, he looks at the watch, which isn't working because it doesn't tell time anymore. He looks at the watch and he pretends that he's talking to the watch to hear what Craig is saying. So that's him playing this role of sort of a prophet, a mediator, a communicator between Craig and the Quakers. Okay. Snowman doesn't really realize the power of the stories he made up. Like, they carry a lot of power, and he has to adhere to the stories. He has to, like so. At first, when he made up the stories, he was just like kind of like getting them out of the way. But they held on to that story, to the stories that he told, and then he had to like live by them. And he had to, and we're going to see in the next chapter, fish. He makes up the story that they have to hunt him a fish. They have to get him a fish once a week. And there's a part in the chapter where he goes, "Oh, he should have made it 3 times a week and not once a week, because now it's affecting him. He's only eating fish once a week because they only catch fish once a week, because that's the story he told them, and he can't now sort of change the story. I suppose he could, but that would be like an elaborate new lie that he would have to tell." Okay, I want to read from page 112, and just to give you an idea of Snowman's struggle with the Quakers, in the sense that they have no context whatsoever, and the extent to which they have no context. Okay, so 112, halfway down the page. "What is toast?" says Snowman to himself. Once they've run off. Toast is when you take a piece of bread. What is bread? Bread is when you take some flour. What is flour? We'll skip that part, it's too complicated. Bread is something that you can eat, made from a ground-up plant and shaped like a stone. You cook it. Please, why do you cook it? Why don't you just eat the plant? Never mind that part. Pay attention. You cook it, and then you cut it into slices, and you put a slice in a toaster, which is a metal box that heats up with electricity. What is electricity? Don't worry about that. While the slice is in the toaster, you get out the butter. Butter is a yellow grease made from the mammary glands of... Skip the butter. So the toaster turns the slice of bread black on both sides with smoke coming out, and then this toaster shoots the slice up into the air and it falls onto the floor. Forget it, says Snowman. Let's try again. Toast was a pointless invention from the Dark Ages. Toast was an implement of torture that caused all those subjected to it to regurgitate into verbal form the sins and crimes of their past lives. Toast was a ritual item devoured by fetishists in the belief that it would enhance their kinetic and sexual powers. Toast cannot be explained by any rational means. Toast is me. I am toast. Yeah, so this just shows like the extent to which the Quakers have no context. They have absolutely no context whatsoever. He has to explain things right to the minimal, and even then, like the Quakers won't get it. And that's why he ends off this chapter by saying he is toast. He feels like he is meaningless, right? He feels like he is all these things that he has described that resemble toast. But also, when you say I'm toast, it also means it's an expression that means I'm in trouble, like I'm screwed, I'm in so much trouble, I'm doomed. And so he's ultimately saying that he is doomed. And it goes back to his name, the fact that he's talking about, he's called himself the snowman. He's called himself Snowman, and there is no snow to speak of in this context in the novel. So he's calling himself after something that doesn't exist anymore. He's toast. He's over. He's almost extinct. And this is what leads to his belief. Like I think to a certain extent, and we've had this argument back and forth with the teachers as well. I think at this point he believes he's the only human being left. I don't think he knows if they are. He has no way of knowing if they are any other human beings on the planet. He is going to find out later when people are talking on the radio, later on in the novel, and from how the novel ends, he is going to find out that there are other human beings. Sorry for the spoilers, but you should have been there by now. But at this point, the way I see it, I think that he believes he's the last man on earth. He's the only human being that's left, and I think that's that defeated phrase that he's saying, sentence that he's saying, "I'm toast." Like it's over for me. Like I'm the last of my kind. There is like it's over. Like I'm doomed. Okay. So that is the toast chapter. Okay. Then we move on to fish. Okay. So in the chapter fish, we learn about the certain rituals that he has made up in order. I think he's also just trying to marry his own needs with the needs of the Quakers. We know that the Quakers only eat plants. They don't eat any meat because Craig wanted to do away with the need to kill, the need to harm people or animals, and so they only eat grass and plants and stuff. Um, of course, um, uh, of course, Snowman can't survive on that at all. Um, so he makes up, because that's what he does. He's the prophet, right? So he makes up this thing of Craig said, you guys have to give me fish at the beginning of the week, well, once a week. And the fascinating thing about this is that they buy into it because Craig said so, right? So they believe in this higher power, and if the higher power says we must do it, so we must do it, right? So they've bought into it. They think it's absolutely disgusting, but they set it up in such a way, that everyone participates in hunting this fish. So the women will stand there and they'll point out the fish that must be killed, and the men will kill it with sticks and stones and stuff. That way, they are sort of sharing the guilt of killing this fish, and it's explained in the chapter where they think it's the most disgusting thing. But something important to note is that they think this human trait is really, really disgusting, but they're fascinated by it. First of all, they buy into it because Craig said so, and they're also really fascinated about it with it. So they actually sit and they watch and eat this thing because he taught them how to braai, how to cook fish, and to bring it to him wrapped in leaves. And so he takes it and he's so hungry, and he just stuffs it in his face, and he makes like these groaning noises that are almost sexual. And they're so disgusted by him. But it's one of those things like when you drive past a really bad accident, you're like, oh my gosh, that's horrific. But like you're like oh my gosh. But like you look away, but you look again. So they're disgusted, but they're fascinated by this human trait. And again, like that's such a human thing to do. It's such a human thing for the Quakers to do, to be disgusted by something, but to still be fascinated in it. And also this thing of a higher power. Like they were created not to even think about that, but they live for it now. They desire it. It's what they want. They want to know where they come from. They want to know what they're about. Okay. So some other things to point out for the chapter. So Craig has a very low opinion about human creativity. So he didn't think very highly of human creativity. But the irony in that is that he includes himself. He thinks that there's certain things that human beings don't need. We don't need words. We don't need history. We don't need that kind of stuff. But he's a genius. And so when he's talking about human creativity being unnecessary, he's talking about himself. He created the Quakers, so his creativity is also redundant then if he were to include himself in that sort of belief, right? um Snowman hates to hear the Craigs praise Craig, right? So he talks about Craig as this higher power. He's happy to take on this position of being a prophet, but every time the Quakers seem to sort of worship Craig and look up to Craig, he resents that. Like he really hates the fact that they look up to him. It even says somewhere in this chapter on page. He says it a little bit later in the thing, and he says, And he says, don't praise them, don't praise him, praise me. Like, thank me for this. I think it's in the chapter somewhere. I just can't find it. Sorry, boys. So that's for you to find. Okay. So the fact that he hates to hear the Quakers praise Craig, it suggests that the story that he tells them about how Craig came about is not a simple one. It's not a simple, straightforward story. It's not as pretty as what he tells them. It's more complicated than that. And on the one hand, he resents Craig, but on the other hand, he sort of sympathizes. I mean, Craig was probably the only friend that Jimmy had, and vice versa, right? So it's this thing of knowing the best of someone and knowing the worst of someone, and still sort of loving them and being able to. We can never fully love someone or fully like someone without seeing the best and the worst in them, because nobody is completely good and nobody is completely bad. We are all a little bit of everything, right? And we see that in Snowman's complicated feelings about Craig. Okay. Snowman enhances Craig's godlike status by saying he came down like thunder. Okay, so he tries to simplify what happened to Craig and how Craig came into existence, because he realizes that there'd be too much explaining to do. So what does he say? He says, "Oh no, he came down with the thunder," and of course that makes him seem even more supernatural, because who could come down with thunder besides like someone who's godlike, right? Okay, so I want to read from like the first page of the fish chapter. Okay, so page 114. Okay. The sky darkens from ultramarine to indigo. God bless the namers of oil paints and high-class women's underwear. Snowman thinks. Rose petal pink, crimson lake, sheer mist, burnt umber, ripe plum, indigo, ultramarine. They're fantasies in themselves, such words and phrases. It's comforting to remember that Homo sapiens sapiens was once so ingenious with language, and not only with language, ingenious is in every direction at once. Monkey brains had been Craig's opinion. Monkey paws, monkey curiosity, the desire to take apart, turn inside out, smell, fondle, measure, improve, trash, discard, all hooked up to monkey brains, an advanced model of monkey brains, but monkey brains all the same. Craig had no very high opinion of human ingenuity, despite the large amount of it he himself possessed. So you see, like everything that a man was able to do, when I say man, I mean like mankind, human beings, was able to do, Craig reduces to just monkey brains. Like it was just really just curiosity, what made us be able to make fire and decide that we can eat onions, but we can't eat certain weeds. Do you know what I mean? Was all curiosity. It was all just someone who was just dumb, who just tried things and decided, oh, it's not bad, and ate it. It was all accidental. But what Snowman is noting is that as much as he's looking down on humanity's ability to create from scratch, he's including himself in that. Craig is including himself in that, looking down on human beings, because he was a genius. I mean, he created humans from scratch. He engineered a virus from scratch. He was a genius in the novel, but also maybe he's including himself in the monkey brain. He's also a monkey brain. He's just an over-curious animal, really. Okay, so that's probably something important to note in fish. I also want to read a little bit on page 118 of this novel. Okay, towards the bottom of the page. In the chaos, everything was mixed together. Oh, so here he's trying to explain, this is just an example of him trying to explain things from the beginning, what things look like. And here he's trying to explain what chaos looks like. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a teacher, but I really like the way that he explained it. He said, in the chaos, he's trying to explain why the world is the way it is now. The fact that there's the Quakers left and there's no other humans. Why is the world the way that it is? And you can see that to a certain extent that that Snowman understands what is happening. Okay, and why Craig did what he did. Okay, so it says here, in the chaos, everything was mixed together. He says there were too many people, and so the people were all mixed up with the dirt. The pail comes back, sloshing, and is set down in the circle of light. He adds a handful of earth, stirs it with a stick. There, he says, chaos. You can't drink it. No, a chorus. You can't eat it. No, you can't eat it. Laughter. You can't swim in it. You can't stand on it. No, no. They love this bit. The people in the chaos were full of chaos themselves, and the chaos made them do bad things. They were killing other people all the time, and they were eating up all the children of Oryx, against the wishes of Oryx and Craig. Every day they were eating them up. They were killing them and eating them and eating them. They ate them even when they weren't hungry. Gasping here, widened eyes. It's always a dramatic moment. Such a wickedness. He continues. And Oryx had only one desire. She wanted the people to be happy and to be at peace and to stop eating up her children. But the people couldn't be happy because of the chaos. And then Oryx said to Craig, let us get rid of the chaos. And so Craig took the chaos and he poured it away. Snowman demonstrates, sloshing the water off to the side, then turns the pail upside down. There, empty. And this is how Craig did the great rearrangement and made the great emptiness. He cleared away the dirt. He cleared room for his children, for the children of Craig, right, and for the children of Oryx as well. Right, said Snowman. Is there no end to his shameless inventions? He feels like crying. Craig made the great emptiness, says the men. For us, say the women. It's becoming a liturgy. Oh, good, kind Craig. The adulation of Craig enrages Snowman, though this adulation has been his own doing. The Craig they're praising in his fabrication, a fabrication not unmixed with spite. Craig was against the notion of God, or of gods of any kind, and would surely be disgusted by the spectacle of his own gradual deification. If he were here, but he's not here. And it's galling for Snowman to listen to all this misplaced sucking up. Why don't they glorify Snowman instead? Good, kind Snowman, who deserves glorification more, much more, because who got them out? Who got them here? Who's been watching over them all this time? Well, sort of watching. It sure as hell wasn't Craig. Why can't Snowman revise the mythology? Thank me, not him. Lick my ego instead. But for now his bitterness must be swallowed. Yes, he says, good kind Craig. He twists his mouth into what he hopes is a gracious and benevolent smile. At first he'd improvised, but now they're demanding dogma. He would deviate from the orthodoxy at his peril. He might not lose his life. These people aren't violent or given to bloodthirsty acts of retribution, or not so far, but he'd lose his audience. They'd turned their backs on him. They'd wandered away. He is Craig's prophet now, whether he likes it or not, and the prophet of Oryx as well. That or nothing. And he couldn't stand to be nothing. To know himself to be nothing. He needs to be listened to. He needs to be heard. He needs at least the illusion of being understood. Oh, Snowman, tell us about when Craig was born, says one of the women. This is a new request. He isn't ready for it, though he should have expected it. Children are of great interest to these women. Careful, he tells himself. Once he provides a mother and a birth, scene and an infant, Craig for them, they'll want the details. They'll want to know when Craig cut his first tooth and spoke his first word, and ate his first root, and other such banalities. Craig was never born, says Snowman. He came down out of the sky, like thunder. Now go away, please, I'm tired. He'll add to this fable later. Maybe he'll endow Craig with horns and wings of fire and allow him a tail for good measure. Okay, so this is the stuff that I was talking about, the notes that you had to add in. Snowman's resentment of Craig, even though he's actually the one that created the story of him. We see in this extract that I've read, we can see the Craig's deep desire for a sense of belonging. We can also see how many times they've heard the story and they just never get enough of the story. That's why they respond, and it's an engaging. But we also see how, as much as him telling the story is a way for the Quakers to find their sense of belonging, Snowman also gets a kick out of it because he wants to create, it says in this chapter, to create the illusion of being heard. He wants to feel like he's being heard. And that is testament to his loneliness, which we see in the next chapter called Bottle, because in Bottle, he goes back up the tree and he realizes how absolutely lonely he is. Remember, Snowman is living in a state of complete isolation. Nobody else understands the context except for him. He has nobody to share that context with. Okay? And even though he has the Quakers to talk to, they don't fully understand. And so after an engagement with them, he feels even more lonely. So in the next chapter, he finds a bottle of whiskey, must have been a stash of whiskey that he had found before, and he gets drunk. So that is how he copes with the loneliness. That's how he copes with the sense of isolation. That's important for you to note. He drinks. He drinks to drown, as we say, we drown our sorrows. He's trying to numb the fear and the sadness and the anger that he feels, and he can't lash it out on anyone because there's no one who's going to fully understand it. Okay, I'm almost done. We're close to the end. Okay. And again, we know this from the early chapters. He tries to connect with people from the past. This is the whole point of him trying to remember how he grew up, where he grew up and stuff. It's a way of trying to connect with people that would understand his context. It's looking back on his past, right? And what do we do when we feel lost in the present and we feel lonely in the present? We miss days gone by. We're living in lockdown. Our normal is completely different. And what do? We miss how things used to be before lockdown. And this is what Snowman is doing. So in his loneliness, he is surrounded by the products of unrestrained scientific experimentation. So he has to sleep up in a tree because the pigoons and the wolvogs can't climb. Right? Wolvogs are, I think they look like dogs and they're really friendly, and that's actually how they draw you in, and then they eat you. Like they hunt you down, they eat you. But for some reason they can't climb trees. So that's the only way that he can stay safe, is by sleeping up in the trees. So he's isolated and he is surrounded by all of these scientific experiments that people performed before the virus happened. And now these are the wild animals. And all the wild animals that we knew and that we're familiar with no longer exist. Okay. So I hope that you listened to this. I hope that you took notes. Boys, you really need to take notes. I'm expecting you to read as much as possible during midterm break. Like at least go up to chapter 10, boys. And it's easier to read when you're not in a rush and when you're not pressed for time. Please don't leave this to the last minute. Okay? Have a good day.